Hey guys, let's spring into science by studying seasons. I wanted to start by reviewing this topic because we just finished making the transition from one season, winter, to another season, spring. And I want you to understand that what causes seasons is the Earth's axis. If you imagine a line or a pole that went from the North Pole to the South Pole, straight through Earth, that line or axis is not straight up and down. It is tilted relative to the sun. Because of that, more sun hits some parts of the Earth than other parts. So that's our first cause of seasons. Right now, you can see that more sunlight is hitting the northern part of the Earth, or the northern hemisphere, than the southern part of the Earth, or the southern hemisphere. Right? And here's the equator right here. This is that central dividing line between the two hemispheres. So that tilt makes it so more sun is hitting the northern hemisphere right now. It is summer in the northern hemisphere. It is winter in the southern hemisphere. And in winter, it doesn't mean you get no sun, just less. Though interestingly, if you look at the poles, there's some places where sun rarely or very little reaches these parts, these poles, and it'll be almost 24 hours of night during the winter at times. The same thing at the North Pole during summer. There will be places where you have sunlight 24 hours a day. But for most parts of the Earth, you'll just see some variation. During summer, you'll get more sunlight and more intense sunlight. You'll get longer days and more intense solar energy during those days. Now, as the Earth goes along its orbit around the sun, it keeps that same tilt in its axis. And so as it orbits the sun and ends up on the other side of its orbit, we see the seasons reversed. Now all of a sudden, instead of less solar energy in the south, we have more solar energy. And so now we have summer in the south. And conversely, we have winter in the north. And everything we went over here is now reversed. And so that's why seasons change from one part of the year to another. Reason one is tilt of the axis, and reason two is the orbit of the Earth. And because of the orbit, that tilt of the axis causes the seasons to switch in the northern and southern hemispheres. We can also see that with, instead of a 2D model, a 3D model. So here's our 3D model. And I think you can see really clearly how the northern hemisphere is getting a lot more solar energy than the southern hemisphere. And again, you have that tilt. There's the north, there's the south, and we have that tilt in our axis. The northern hemisphere is getting a lot more solar energy right now. And it's summer in the northern hemisphere, and it is winter in the southern hemisphere. Now, let's continue along our orbit. And you will now see the reverse. You're going to see that southern hemisphere getting a lot more solar energy than the north. So again, there's our northern hemisphere, there's our southern hemisphere, and let's look at the difference in solar energy from one to the other. Now, that means there's some real big changes on Earth, other than just what you think of initially with changes in temperature. A big change that we've studied in class a lot is producers. And producers all of a sudden have a lot more solar energy for which they can photosynthesize their own energy and develop. And that is one of the biggest changes in our ecosystem, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And just looking outside, you can see that change already. And let's go look outside. We are going to head out through my attic. we get out the attic, we are going to head out this window onto the roof. And I don't recommend that you climb out on your own roof. We're going to stay far away from the edge. But here is what I want you to notice. These trees and their new leaves would not have been here just a few months ago in winter. We are transitioning to summer, and now all of a sudden, as you look out over the rooftops, not just the evergreen trees, but all the trees have leaves. And it's because they have that increased solar energy as we leave winter and move towards summer. And they need to use that solar energy to start to develop, to reproduce, to grow, and help them outcompete other plants in their ecosystem. And that also provides a lot of energy for other animals who are going to feed off these plants. And so that change in the intensity in solar energy is what allows all of these changes and this big flowering, literally, and growing of new leaves, of new flowers, of pollen in the air and your allergies, all of that. And so we're going to go tour the garden tomorrow and look at some of the effects of those changes. So thank you for your time today. Your assignment is in Google Classroom. Make sure to read that carefully, and I'll see you next lesson. Bye!